All right, we got some quirky light today. I gotta figure out where it's gonna be good to film. We got clouds coming and going. We got bright blue sky, and then we've got like this. It's like I'm thinking about raining, but maybe not here. But then it's like palm trees in Miami going on. We're kind of clear over there. I don't know where it's good for, like, we're just gonna, anyway, it's the 5th of August, 2023. I'm Scott Al Miller. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. And today we're gonna be just talking about life in Nicaragua, talking about some stuff going on between Nicaragua and the United States, or just things going on in the United States, and what life is like being in the third world. But is it really? Let's talk about that right after the bump. I set up the camera to start recording, and this is awful light. This does not work. We're gonna move. This light is just brutal to work with today. So I was supposed to be in Managua today. I mentioned that, and we're gonna have to push that off till Monday because we were talking to the folks in Managua, and they're like, look, the city's shut down today. I don't know if you're gonna be able to go anywhere because it's a holiday. And I know you're going to ask, Scott, what holiday is it? Look, nobody knows what holidays they are. It's just a day that no one works. Like, no one pays attention. Nobody has any idea what holiday it is. I'm pretty sure there's some days they shut down by accident, and they're like, someone's like, I thought today was a holiday, and people are like, what holiday did you think it was? And they're like, you like put names on them? The city shut down, so I'm at home getting some stuff done, which is good because I had stuff to do, and it's letting me keep up with the show and hopefully get a little bit more on top of it. Was my goal for the day, and so far so good. I'm actually making this episode early in the day, and it is gorgeous. It's very warm today, though, I should mention, but we've got some nice overcast, and we've got some nice bright blue skies all at the same time, which is really tough for filming, but it is a beautiful day overall. So some interesting things going on right now. Well, first of all, a little bit of what we've got coming up. We hope, so tonight we're gonna go see Abimael and Franklin play at an El Vivero. Maybe I'll get some footage there. I normally do. Tomorrow night, Monty is playing at Via Via, so we're hoping to be there. So we've got 2 nights in a row of going out activities. I really want to go see Big Ronnie play in Malpaisillo, but that overlaps with Monty. If I go, it's got to be like an hour and then race back. We'll see. Might pull it off, depends on how the day goes, but it will give me some opportunity to film a little bit more, so I might do it for that reason. And that would be fun. And I want to get some filming in Malpaisillo. It's a place I've been, and it's like one of those cities that, like, logistically we use, and I did have a viewer on the show ask me to film up there, but it's just far enough away that, like, no one ever goes. We show it driving by and some stuff, but we never actually go there, and no one knows what it looks like. No one has any idea, but it's not that far away, and so it comes up a lot when you live in this area. Anyway, a little bit interesting. I would like to go get a little bit of film of it. That would be interesting. It's a very, very small city, and certainly one that no one knows. If you've seen my episodes on La Paz Centro, it is smaller than that. I think it is a bit smaller than El Sauce, so very small city indeed. Maybe in the 10 to 15, maybe 18,000. I'll have to look that up. I don't really know. So that's our first thing coming up, and then Saturday we're hoping to have a day off. Hopefully I can do a whole bunch of recording and get video stuff done. I've always got projects to do on a day off. And then Sunday, our plan is to go to the Hípico de Granada. We've done Managua, we've done Nagarote, we've done Leon, and Dominica and I have not been back to Granada together in a year and a half. We actually went there to interview our current hotel manager, Isabel, long ago, met with her, and that was it. Like, we were in Granada for an evening. We just went on the stretch, had dinner at Nectar, and left. We didn't get to do anything. We didn't get to, and since that time, they've rebuilt the Malecon, and she's not seen any of that. And the port is opened, and all kinds of things are going on. So it'll be exciting to go down to Granada. And for those who are not aware, we lived there 8 years ago. We used to live downtown in Granada on the north side of town, and that was our introduction to Nicaragua. And we lived there with the kids. We had a house, Los Arcos, and it was a really beautiful time. And Granada is very different now than it was back then. And I'm pretty sure that one meal at Nectar, one night in the dark, we weren't even there in like daylight. We got there fairly late because we were staying at at Laguna de Apoyo, and it was just, we took some time off in the evening and ran out there to get dinner and met with Isabel, and that was it, right? That was like the entire experience for her in Granada since we left there in late 2015. We moved from there to a short-term stay in Galveston, and then moved on almost immediately to, I don't even know where, to Greece right after that. And so for her, Granada is essentially this 8 years ago experience. She doesn't remember where things are. She hasn't walked around. She hasn't been there. She hasn't done anything. So it should be really cool to go back, because she's not been past the old house. She has not seen the new restaurants. She hasn't made it to Pizza Valle in forever. Right? 8 years. Every time I go back to Granada, if I can, I go get pizza at Pizza Valle, which is like my favorite pizza place. I gotta film that for you guys. It is such good pizza. She gets jealous every time I go. She's like, you're eating pizza, aren't you? And my buddy Josie Marr, hopefully will be able to come out with us. And the Ipico should be a lot of fun, but we're talking about doing it differently. We've done some of the walking the parade routes in other places, and she had a lot of fun doing the one in Managua. So Granada should be cool, but we're talking about getting one of those private booths where you like pay the RSVP to like get a really nice seat right on the parade route. Then we could set up the cameras and record a lot of stuff that way, but we wouldn't have to march along. We'd know where we were going to be. We could get food and drinks and just hang out, and then spend the night there, and then do Masaya and Managua for shopping on Monday morning, and then bring everyone back here on Monday evening. Not the kids will stay here, right? But everyone that's with us at the Ipico will do that shopping, and then Monday night is the little Grita, the Scream, here in Leon, which is an important religious and cultural festival related to both the Catholic Church and volcanoes, which we'll explain on Monday. We filmed it in the past, so old episodes, you can go back and look and get a feel for what's coming if you're interested, or wait until Monday's episode. We're hoping we can film it here. It happens all over the city, big event, so hopefully now that we know a little bit more about it, we'll be able to get a bit more footage, or more interesting footage, than we did last year, and we have a bigger crew, so we have multiple camera people that will be out. So fingers crossed for that on Monday. So that's what we have coming up in the immediate future as far as our plans. Wow, that's a lot for one weekend. And that's not even including that there might be some bands we want to fit in there in between. That's already 3 events. And then also things that are going on. We've got the last of the t-shirts that are here being handed out. Another order should be here on Monday. They'll come with the group on Monday. And the new, this is huge, this has been like a month in the works. My new studio wall is nearly done. It is actually done, but it's not mounted on the wall yet. It's I'm not going to describe it too much, but I have this amazing new thing that you're going to see very soon on the show. I've got to figure out lighting and a bunch of stuff, and they've been working on it for a really long time. It's beautiful. I got to see it finished today, but it's so heavy because it covers an enormous part of my office that it's going to take multiple people to lift it, position it, drill the walls, and get it mounted and everything. So that is planned to happen tomorrow. I got to see it today. It's amazing. Tomorrow, hopefully it'll be mounted. It won't be finished. I still got things I got to do, and like figuring out lighting on it's going to take a while before I really get that down, and like there's a lot of stuff I got to figure out. Super excited about it. I've been needing a way to do recording at home much better, and I think this is going to really get us there. So fingers crossed that's an exciting thing coming up. While I'm filming this, I'm actually waiting on some roasted smoked paprika, cauliflower, and avocado tacos. I'm hopefully going to be eating those soon. We are doing some experiments, quite a few experiments, with our chef to see what we can do to get like a broader range of food. Like she's been our chef for years, but she's been our private chef for only about 6 to 8 months. And we've gotten some patterns down. There's lots of things she knows how to make, but there's only a few of us in the house, and sometimes there's only like 1 or 2 of us, so she has a lot of free time. So now we're moving into working with her on experimental new recipes like the tacos we're doing today, or even more exciting, over the last 2 days, Dominica has been working with her to teach her how to make seitan. But not just making seitan. For those of you who are familiar in the United States, making seitan means you start with vital wheat gluten, and that's not something you can readily buy here. You can, but it's very hard to get. Like, you have to go to Managua, and the price is relatively high on it. So it makes it a bit of a problem to use it as a regular part of cooking. So the first thing that they had to do was learn how to make vital wheat gluten. So they did that. They learned that process, and they have to learn it specifically for Nicaragua because it's different here based on the climate, the humidity and that stuff. So they got that, and they made seitan, which Dominica has made lots of seitan in the past, but our chef Yao has never seen seitan before. She has no idea what this is. She was blown away. We had a long conversation about it today. And she's like, I cannot believe that we took flour and we ended up with chicken. How did we go from flour to chicken? And she's like, we did all this. I had no idea what we were doing. And when we were done, there was chicken. And she was just like, she was so excited by this whole process. And now we have, I don't know what you call it. It's like flour water. It's this water that's produced from the making of seitan. And the theory is that Dominica is going to find a way to make that into fake bacon, which would be great because that's another thing we can't readily get here. It's not entirely impossible, but it borders on the impossible. Nobody has that. So if we can get that, if we can have this, and let me tell you, what they made for the first trial run of the seitan was they then breaded it and did it as if it was standard Nicaragua fried chicken, and I cannot believe how good it was. So good. Best seitan I've ever had. It is one of the best chicken meals I've ever had, which partially that is the Nicaragua fried chicken thing. There's a reason why fried chicken is incredibly popular here. They know how to do it. It is really, really good. And we did, in a real fryer. And of course, Yao has worked places doing fried chicken her whole life, so she knows fried chicken, right? So, but she just couldn't believe that she could do this fried chicken from wheat and from wheat flour, and so it was done in this Nicaragua style. We had mashed potatoes and green beans with it. Wow, it was so good. It was, I've only been a vegetarian. This is a funny thing to say. I've only been a vegetarian for 22 years. Prior to that, the majority of my life, I ate meat. I didn't eat as much meat as a lot of people do, but I ate meat for a long period of my life, and I have a very good memory of eating chicken. Chicken is something I ate a lot of because I didn't grow up really liking steak, and I never really liked pork except for bacon. I did like that, and so I like breakfast sausage. But I tended a lot towards chicken all my life, and one of my few things that I actually miss from being a vegetarian. The one thing I always point out that I miss, well, two things. One is just the convenience. You just show up anywhere and there's something to eat. You never have to worry about, are they going to have a meatless option? You could just eat. So obviously I miss that. Every vegetarian misses that. But the other thing that I miss is McDonald's chicken nuggets, mostly because of the way you dunk them in sauce and whatever. But this is really important. I miss the chicken nuggets of my youth. When I was little, the chicken nuggets at McDonald's were fantastic. They were so juicy and flavorful and just amazing. And then at some point they had this huge campaign. We're making McDonald's healthier. It's all white meat chicken. And the chicken nuggets went to just bland and dry and who cares? And they used to be the best chicken nuggets I've ever had in my entire life. And then they went to, I don't even order them. This is back when I still ate meat. I would stop ordering them because they weren't very good. I can't believe they made a change that big, that they went from one of my all-time favorite foods to something I wouldn't even bother ordering. And what was amazing about this seitan is that it has the flavor and the juiciness and the texture of the childhood chicken nuggets that were unhealthy. Sure, unhealthy. Okay, McDonald's. But they're not like the dry, nasty ones. So this was, we did full-size chicken, right? So my hope is that the next thing we're going to try is making chicken nuggets out of the same recipe and see if we can make something that approximates a McDonald's chicken nugget from the early 1980s, and then get a series of sauces, because we can get ranch, we can get honey, we can get barbecue. I mean, we have all those things, right? And then dunk it and see if we can replicate that, because if we can make those chicken nuggets like my childhood, that is the absolute last thing. And it's not like I liked the chicken aspect of it. I like the size, I like the breading, I like the dunking in sauces, I like the mechanism of eating nuggets like that. Like, I've always just liked that. Morningstar nuggets, I like those. Not as much as I like these, though. Like, I'm so excited about this food. So that was yesterday. We had that for dinner last night. That is got to be the most excited all of us have been about food, including Chef Yao, since she started cooking for us, and maybe since we've been here. And no, we probably some salmon at some point. It was more exciting. And then today we're trying cauliflower tacos. So I recently bought 17 cookbooks from Mexico, or Mexican cooking. Obviously, they're not from Mexico. And a bunch of them are vegan ones. Some of them are, just general Mexican cooking. If we can learn sauces and dips and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of things we can learn or get ideas for other food, but the vegan ones are the ones I'm really interested in. Not that I'm vegan, but I really like a lot of vegan cooking. They tend to be a little bit more creative, so I really like adding vegan into the diet. And my daughter Liesel is incredibly lactose intolerant. She'll take Lactaid and eat ice cream or whatever, but if we can avoid it, it's that much better. And I'm not a big fan of how dairy makes me feel. I'm not lactose intolerant, but I still feel better if I'm not eating it. So having some vegan options, at least mixed in from time to time, is very nice for me. I prefer it. My wife doesn't prefer it. She wants to have dairy as much as possible, but for me, I do really enjoy that. So I'm going through vegan cookbooks and starting to look at some of these things that they can experiment with in the kitchen. And our chef is very excited about that. She's like, hey, you know, have you looked through the cookbooks? Maybe we could try something new. And we've done a number of these in the past, like fried avocado tacos, which is a mainstay here now. And some of our friends tried it and said this is the best they've ever had like this, one of the best tacos they've ever had. And they're from the Southwest, right? The home of tacos, where this is like the thing that they do. And they got them here with our chef and they're like, this is amazing. These are so good. But we have great avocados here. They know how to fry them here, and they know how to make great sauces. We're doing Carolina Reaper sauces on the tacos, which is just an amazing flavor if you can handle the heat. And so the food thing has been very exciting. So that has been going on as well. So a little bit of news about Nicaragua vis-a-vis the United States, the EEUU, is that, so traditionally, we've talked about this a little bit. There's a lot of little topics that we've touched on in the past, and one of them is that here in Nicaragua, our currency is the Cordoba. But we use the dollar widely. You can just use dollars here. Someone mentioned, oh, they're going to make some changes to dollarize, and that doesn't make any sense for two reasons in Nicaragua. One is we already have the dollar everywhere, so there would be no benefit to dollarizing. No one would notice, right? So it wouldn't provide some benefit. It would just take away the benefits we have of the Cordoba. So we already have the flexibility of being able to use the dollar, including at ATMs and banks. All of the banks, I don't know of any bank that doesn't use dollars, and the government sometimes uses dollars. So this is completely official. It is not the official currency, but it is official to use the currency. Okay, so that's the first piece. So we have the Cordoba, but we use the dollar. Traditionally, we have either a really strict in the past or a looser, more recently, what's called creeping peg. And what this means is some currencies, such as the Panamanian Cordoba, I had it as a Balboa, is a one-to-one peg with the dollar, meaning if the dollar changes in any way, the Balboa changes identically with it. And the Bank of Panama, the national bank, the central bank, will always take any number of dollars and give you equal Balboas for it, or vice versa, right? You can always go back and forth with no exchange overhead, and you can use them interchangeably. So if you're out, now they don't print their own paper, they only print their own coins, but if you're out doing anything and you have a $1 and a 1 Balboa coin, you can just use them in the same place wherever. That doesn't matter. Everything's interchangeable, which is nice. And so they say that Panama's just on the dollar. Technically, they're on the Balboa that is pegged to the dollar. But once you peg 1-to-1, you're on the dollar. Ecuador's on the dollar. El Salvador's on the dollar. They're actually on it, but the Balboa is simply pegged to it identically. And a lot of places do this. They peg to the dollar. Here in Nicaragua, we have a peg, it's called a creeping peg, meaning at some point it was theoretically 1 Cordoba to the dollar, and every year it moves by a very small percentage. And so when we first moved down here, I believe it was 35.5, not 8 years ago, I just mean like 2.5 years ago. It was like 35.5 to the dollar, and now it's roughly 37 to the dollar. So, and it's moved several times, but it doesn't move in like this fluctuating. It does a tiny bit on the exchange rate, but the official central bank has a pegged number that it is pegged at. And so when we first got here, it was 35.5, but really quickly it moved to 36. After a while, it moved to 36.5, and recently it moved to 37. And the expectation is that we would be seeing 37.5 coming up fairly soon, because we've had that for a while. And the idea is that they slowly devalue the Cordoba, and this is a way to fight against inflation and to control exports and things like that. It's a lot of people. And this is actually a really important point. A lot of people, when they're talking about the U.S. currency, we've had a number of conversations about this recently, they complain that the dollar is too weak. And we talked about how it's actually strong right now, but it is weakening slightly, but it's not a big dramatic thing, but that weak is not bad and strong isn't good. And in many cases, countries want to be weaker. They don't want it to be stronger. Here in Nicaragua, for example, they don't want it to be really weak, but they want it weaker than it is. So they forcibly weaken the Cordoba every 6 to 18 months, roughly. And I'm sure there's a big official schedule. I'm sure you can look at it ahead of time. I know they used to have it published, like where it will be years in advance. So it's a very predictable thing, and they know exactly, and it's all planned out by the central bank to make sure that Nicaragua is able to maintain exports, that the internal power of the economy is not taken over by inflation or whatever. So it's a manner of controlling inflation and controlling exports, and it works pretty well. It's a really interesting mechanism that you see in very few places. Normally they let it float or they peg traditionally. This is, the creeping peg is really novel. So they just announced that for 2024, the creeping peg has been suspended. There's going to be no change for at least, they don't know when it's going to change again, but the upcoming changes have been postponed until at minimum 2025. They will reevaluate sometime in the future, but for sure, the rest of 2023 and all of 2024, we are not going to be moving. And what this means is that they're allowing a little bit of extra inflation comfort, because the implication is that the dollar has some combination of weakened too much, or is expected to weaken a little bit, which is probably less of the concern. That's probably not too much of a real thing. But their worry is inflation. The U.S. is inflating, and so they're halting our inflation, our natural inflation, the desired planned inflation that happens here, because it's a very small number. Right? It's not big inflation. They maintain a careful amount of inflation against the dollar, and because the U.S. is inflating, not wildly, not crazy, not disaster like people like to say, but the U.S. does have, or has had, a little bit too much inflation. And so to buffer against that, Nicaragua is removing our central bank's planned inflation, so that instead of inflating against the dollar, we are simply inflating with the dollar, which is giving us, it allows us here in Nicaragua to have basically the inflation we always expected we would have. Because we have this planned inflation built in, it makes it that some of those things just go away. We were able to absorb more because of the way that works. It's super interesting, very novel, not something you'll ever see again anywhere. I don't know of any other country that does it, but it's really neat to see, because I've never heard of this happening, that there was a creeping peg and they suspended it to deal with the currency in the country that they are pegged against. This gets into really complicated monetary theory, but it's one of those places that it's something that the everyday person can witness. Really complicated behind-the-scenes monetary policy taking place, but be careful not to read too much into it. But the basics are, it is a reflection of Nicaragua's opinion of American inflation rates. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's not a disaster, but it is really interesting to see it in motion. And basically, it is Nicaragua making a financial planning decision based on their perception that the Nicaraguan financial system is remaining more steady and viable than the American one over this short period of time. It's not a big thing. They're not unpegging from the dollar. They're not looking at alternative currencies. Nothing weird like that. People will come up with weird suggestions as to what's going on. None of that is happening. It is a very simple built-in mechanism to hedge against inflation in an economy that wants a consistent amount of continuing inflation. They're worried about deflating here normally, and so they build in inflation to make sure you can't deflate, because the economy can rebound in a small market really quickly and cause deflation, and deflation can unhinge a market if you're not careful. So they want to keep that from happening, at least on any real scale, and they do very manually. But there's just too much inflation, so they put a halt on the extra inflation for this period. The other thing I wanted to talk about today that is in relation to the United States, this is a weird one. So I want to talk about the idea of first, second, and third world for a moment, because a lot of people aren't familiar with the historic usage and the modern usage. So historically, post-World War II, the concept of first, second, and third world was really straightforward. They were not references to economy or power or anything like that. The first world was a reference to the United States, Western Europe, and their allies. So this is purely a political organization, which is today known essentially as NATO and its allied Pacific partners, South Korea, Japan, for example. The second world was known as the Russian sphere of influence, or the USSR's sphere of influence at the time. That was the USSR, Eastern Europe, China to some degree, North Korea, and much of Asia, and then bits of Africa went each way, but not too much. Then there was another part of the world that refused to align with either one. They really wanted to be neutral. They didn't want to be isolated from either, but they didn't want to be controlled by either. They weren't playing that game. They were just independent, depolarized countries, and these became known as the third world. Quite naturally, given the countries I just mentioned, the North American and Western Europe alliance was very rich in the late 1940s through 1990s. This was by far the richest component of the world. The Russian sphere had a much more robust than baseline economy across the group, but it was much poorer than the first world. And people over time forgot to call them the second world. They just became known as Russia and its satellites, or the USSR and its influence, or whatever. And more recently has become known as the CIS, or the Commonwealth of Independent States. So that's kind of the counterpart to NATO, but it's not strictly just NATO versus CIS. It's all of the countries that work with them. So right now, there's a lot of hope that South Africa is being courted by both sides, because they tend not to play neutrality, but they pick a side. Same thing with Saudi Arabia, for example. Traditionally, those have been on the first world side, but they seem to be leaning very heavily to the second world side at this time. Whereas other places that were traditionally very strongly second world, Ukraine, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and so Finland and so forth, very strongly came over to the first world side. So people shift sides over the decades. The third world has mostly remained stable. And from that, you can see that the first and second world had most of the financial resources. So the majority, but far from all, of the rest of the world that was known as the third world was identified with countries that tended to be poor, partially because they were not tightly integrated into one of those big economic spheres. Even though they were political organizations, they tended to have a lot of economic pull to them. So if you were part of the first world and participated with the United States in all the things that it does, you tended to get a lot of financial assistance from the United States, or they were more likely to have flight routes that came to you. They would be more likely to send tourists to you, and so forth. And so here in the region, for example, Panama and Costa Rica are first world countries. They are part very solidly of the United States sphere of influence. Costa Rica especially now, Panama especially in the past. Panama, you could argue, has become neutral over time. Costa Rica has been anything but. They are absolutely a prime example of a small first world nation. They are priced like the first world. They are affected like the first world. They have relations with the United States like the first world. They are very, very first world. In the traditional sense, geopolitically, Nicaragua has been very strongly third world. It is a poster child for the third world in that it is absolutely refusing to be part of either the US or the Russian spheres of influence or Chinese sphere of influence. It does not participate in polarization. It is pretty much wary of everybody. And so it's not just third world in that, well, we didn't pick sides. They were very much, we do not pick sides, right? They're a little bit more like a Switzerland than like a Cuba, which very firmly went to Russia, even though otherwise they have a lot of affinity for each other. So Cuba is an example of a second world nation in the Western Hemisphere, and Nicaragua is the poster child for third world geopolitically. In modern times, because of those geopolitical artifacts that came from being part of those different worlds, eventually people forgot about the second world. The first world became a reference to rich capitalist countries, and the third world became a reference to small poor countries that don't work with the first world. And so in that sense, countries that are very much part of the second world. So Cuba, for example, is generally labeled as a third world country, but even though it is a very great example of a strongly second world one. Things like that have happened. Nicaragua has always been labeled as third world for every reason. It is the poorest country in the region, and so if we're looking at it from a economic standpoint, it is generally labeled as third world. If we're looking at it geopolitically in the historic sense, it is exactly third world. So we tend to think of it that way. So that is a foundation for what I'm about to say. In the more modern times, they've started moving away from strict definitions of financial income, defining first world from third world in the financial sense, right? The geopolitical is always the geopolitical, but people have mostly stopped using that to the point where you have to have this kind of conversation because people have no idea that it meant something other than rich and poor. But now they're starting to evaluate countries in a more robust way where they're looking not at GDP, which we talked about in other episodes is really essentially meaningless. You can go have a buddy come up with a trading system where you pass $1 back and forth to each other 1 trillion times a day, and really quickly you'll have a larger economy, just you and your buddy in your backyard, than the United States. That doesn't make any sense. Obviously, you only have $2 still at the end of the day, so GDP doesn't necessarily reflect anything. And the United States has a mechanism, not intentionally, it just ends up that way, that creates a giant GDP on paper. And Nicaragua has a system, also not intentional, that creates a very tiny GDP on paper, and it both is very misleading. The United States is not nearly as rich as it seems on paper, and Nicaragua is not nearly as poor. The U.S. is rich, Nicaragua is poor, But the level of those things is not as dramatic as it seems because of this weird way that GDP is presented. So because the GDP is essentially meaningless, they have really taken to looking at more robust things like infrastructure, quality of life, happiness indexes, human development, healthcare, and things like that to determine whether someone is first or third world. And you know terms that we use as proxies for first and third world, or vice versa. We refer to developed and developing nations, or developed and underdeveloped nations, or non-developed nations, depending. And so what's really important is among the world's most developed nations, no matter how you look at it, whether it's financial, geopolitical, or human development, Norway is one of the leading countries in the world. They are absolutely famous for the quality of their politics. They're famous for the quality of their women's rights, their quality of infrastructure, and their sheer amount of income per person. Everything is really good in Norway, except the weather, of course. And when the weather's that bad, you have a lot of time to not enjoy being outdoors, where you can sit around and think about how to make lots of money and provide lots of good rights for everyone. So the advantages of lots of snow. So with Norway, they tend to stand out as one of the best shining examples of nearly everything worldwide. Now, it's a little bit unfair because they have a lot of oil, so that's cheating a bit that they have access to natural resources that some places like Nicaragua do not. We're not saying that they do just so much of a better job just because they're Norwegian, but you got to give them some credit. They do a lot of great stuff, and a lot of places that have oil do a pretty terrible job and would never be considered first world. The UAE, for example, realistically isn't a first world country. It's a third world country with a lot of money, right? You don't have the human rights, you don't have the quality of anything in the UAE that you would associate with the first world. So it's one of those places where you're like, oh, they could get really rich, but are they first world? Who thinks of the UAE as first world? You think of them as rich, but when you say first world, you suddenly go, ooh, no, in my mind, that doesn't seem to fit, and there's a reason. So one of the things that's really interesting is that, one, here in Nicaragua, we have better infrastructure and better healthcare, not by a small degree, but by a lot compared to the United States. We also have generally more rights, more freedoms. Women are more protected. There are a lot of things that are very key to these decision factors that are ahead or way ahead here in Nicaragua, and very few that are behind, other than sheer income. We have higher quality of housing for more people. We have fewer people who are falling below the starvation line. We have GDP that makes a lot more sense. We have really good, our internet, for example, our access to the internet is really, really good compared to places like the United States. Our safety is really good, much less violent crime, much fewer people in prisons, just all kinds of things. We don't have a gerrymandered political system, of like really, really big deals that if you were comparing on paper, it's really hard, other than just this one thing of the United States GDP is really high, per capita GDP. That's the only thing you care about. And if you ignore that one thing, Nicaragua is ahead in essentially every category. So because of this, because Nicaragua is the poster child, I mean, truly, other than a few places in Central Africa, the DRC, Central African Republic, these places really do join Nicaragua as being incredibly third world by everybody's definition. But Nicaragua, especially in the Western Hemisphere, is the absolute definition of third world. But it leaves us in a weird position where, if you were doing this comparison to the country that is always used as the definition of the first world, we're more first world than they are. Because of this, we refer to living in the United States as living in the fourth world. It's still that Nicaragua is the third world. We're making no claims to not being. But if we're the third world, the U.S. doesn't qualify to be in the same category as us. It must be the fourth world. To support this, so we say that, but it's mostly joking. But I don't know why it's mostly joking, because I don't know in any way it's not true. Everyone I know who lives here, who has lived in the United States, has the same impression. The United States is backwards. It is falling apart. It is crazy that we consider this a example of something that's doing well, when consistently we feel that nearly every aspect of Nicaraguan culture is doing better. Maybe not great. There's lots of problems here, but we're getting ahead of the ones that are used as a definition of the first world. If you were comparing us to Norway, we would be like, oh, sorry, no, we suck, right? Like there's all kinds of things that Norway's got on us. Yeah, what can we say, right? We're not the best. We're not Norway, we're not Iceland, we're not Switzerland, we're not the Netherlands. Like they got it in the bag, right? Like those guys know what they're doing politically. They're also super rich and it makes life really easy. They've also been stable for outrageous amounts of time. That stuff helps a lot, to ignore that the Netherlands was invaded not that long ago. And then, so we have this joke that we use a lot. Oh, gotta go back to the fourth world, right? We say that stuff and people really do feel that way. We joke, but we mean it. So Norway, all this comes back to Norway. Just recently, the university in Norway, there's only so many, right? A major, very important university in Norway warned their students as to global risks for travel when going to undeveloped countries. And when they listed undeveloped countries, they did a couple important things. They listed specifically infrastructure and healthcare, but also human rights, right? Because like, many countries that have been traditionally doing well in human rights are doing really badly in the last few years. So a lot of places that we thought were on their way to really kind of stellar performance have backpedaled significantly and are going into almost dark age like conditions. And things like in the United States, right? Just the right to express yourself through picking your own clothing has been rescinded in much of the country. And if it's rescinded anywhere, that means on a federal level, it doesn't exist. So there's no longer any means of claiming both that you don't have the right to wear the clothes you want and you don't have the right to use the online platforms that you want. TikTok. Not that I want to be on TikTok, I think it's garbage. That's beside the point. If people want to get on TikTok and make political statements, get the idea out, spread news or whatever, you can't claim that you have a free press and you can't claim you have free speech if you take platforms away when the people on them are saying the things you don't like. Now, it's a hate speech. Yes, you got to take that stuff away. But we're talking about people getting out and just, pushing for big agendas. Oh, we think we should, promote trans rights. And then when the government comes in, local, federal, whatever, and says, whoa, we got a platform where people are getting a voice, turn that platform off. That's the very definition. It's no different than if the New York Times was running stories telling about corruption in the government and the government shut down the newspaper. We are literally at a point where major journalism outlets are being shut down and those voices silenced on the media side. And now we're at a point where they're starting to list things like the clothing you can wear in public, and the government chooses which clothing articles qualify for your gender. These are things we were appalled about in the 1980s when we heard about them historically in Asian countries. Oh, do you know how bad it was in Asia 100 years ago? They wouldn't let you pick the clothes you want to wear. You had to wear these things if you were a man. You had to wear these things if you're a woman. Oh, it sounds like when I was in school in the 1980s, actually, now that I say it. But this horrendous thing that we all said, wow, what a backwards culture. That's a part of the world that I'm so glad we don't have to live in. And now the United States is that country, and the world is looking at them going, what is happening? This is a level of backwards you can't even believe. And in Nicaragua, let me tell you, the things that are illegal in the United States are every day in Nicaragua. People walking down the street, you could be arrested in the United States, and not just for public urination, because that's legal here. And public intoxication, also legal here. And open containers in public, also legal here. Open containers in the car, also legal here. But the funny thing is that you're not allowed to drink and drive here, but you are in the United States. Right. Priorities, people. Priorities. So, all this said, Norway didn't just issue a warning about going to undeveloped countries. They specifically used the United States as the example of the very definition of an undeveloped or developing nation whose level of development was so far behind that it put you at safety risk for traveling there. They literally said, watch out for this category of things, for example, the United States. Normally, we get places like the United States making those kinds of statements about Nicaragua. We take it with a grain of salt because they have an agenda. But when we hear it from Norway about the United States, that's pretty funny. Now, there was a lot of pressure from the United States, and they got that site taken down and got them to no longer be used as the reference, because there was unnecessary, and given someone was certainly making a point. However, worldwide travel advisories routinely list those things as problems in the United States. Problems with the police, problems with freedom of expression, problems with personal identity could land you in very scary, possibly undefendable legal territory for things you have no idea about. It actually makes the U.S. a very dangerous place to travel to for a lot of people. And even if you aren't a person who is attempting to express anything, all it takes is someone in the United States' personal opinion being that you tried to, and you have very little defense because it's not a strict thing. It's just, I don't like the way they look. I think they should look differently, and the public opinion outweighs your rights because you don't actually have any rights, right? The idea of rights in the United States is a very loose one because courts determine what you can do after the fact. Oh, you dressed this way, you got taken to court, now a judge gets to decide if the thing you wore should be legal or not. Not whether it was at the time, but whether you will be tried for something for which there is no law, or a law has not always been used, or everyone else is doing, but we're only going to apply it to you. They can do anything they want. And so the concept of rights in the United States conceptually doesn't mean the way rights does in other countries. When other countries say you have a right, they mean that it is something you're allowed to do. In the United States, it is simply an idea that we've talked about that we suggest the courts take into consideration when determining what the law is on the spot. It's a very complex situation. So it's a very funny thing for those of us who are here to see some real vindication that when we joke about the United States being the fourth world, that we're not the only ones making that joke. Northern Europe, the places that are absolutely leading the world in all those things, the farthest from any place that someone could make a claim are not the first world or not developed nations, are also seeing the United States as being so far behind. And all of that is to say, life here in Nicaragua has been absolutely fantastic. And for those who are in the United States and look at Nicaragua and go, but I'm scared about, trust me, none of that is stuff to actually be scared about. There are negatives here, absolutely. There are things that will drive you crazy from time to time. There are things that aren't as you expect. And for sure, the biggest one that I think is real is when people talk about severe poverty, which does exist, but not nearly as much as people think. And when you look at it and you live in a place where there is a lot of poverty, that can be very difficult emotionally to process, that there are people living around you that are very, very poor. And this is one of the strengths of the United States, is in the incredible ability to create facades for people who are immensely poor and put them into what looks like good housing so that you don't notice. You can go down the street and see families who are starving and never know. Here, if people are starving, you're going to know, and chances are your community is going to do something about it. In the United States, those same people either need to end up absolutely homeless and on the street so they get in your face, or they're going to be hidden away, and maybe they get services, maybe they don't, but their struggles, their starvation, their panic, their fears are hidden from you so that those who have enough can go about their lives and not worry about it. Are there more people living in poverty here in Nicaragua than in the United States? As a ratio, yes, there are. Are there as many people below the starvation line? I don't think so. The United States is a little bit unclear exactly where the starvation line is, but it's creeping up really quickly as the cost of food goes through the roof. Food remains incredibly affordable here. Maybe not luxury food, but normal everyday staples are still crazy cheap. And the pause on the creeping peg will encourage that even more. They'll remain affordable for the foreseeable future, for the next 2 years or so. And when we're looking at the countries that are panicking because people are so dramatically below the starvation line, the country that's constantly coming up is the UK, not Nicaragua, not somewhere in Latin America, not somewhere in Africa. There's a lot of places in Africa that are having problems, but mostly it's because of wars disrupting food supplies, whether it's their own wars, Sudan, Niger, they've got a lot of stuff going on that's making it tough to get food in there. And then, of course, the Russian-Ukrainian war is causing a huge problem with wheat shipments, many of which go to Africa. So Africa's especially impacted because of wars going on, but in general, those countries are able to provide enough food financially for themselves. Here in Latin America, though, because we do not use on a large scale Ukrainian wheat, of course, some grains come in from Europe because it's the world's grain wheat basket, but We tend to be very, very resilient to food issues across Latin America. And here in Nicaragua, we are a food sovereign nation. We are one of the most impervious to food supply chains worldwide. And so we're seeing essentially nothing. We are so insulated from world food supply issues. And we have tons and tons of farmland that isn't being used because we don't need to. But we could absorb more people, we could feed more people, we could export more food if only countries needed us to do so and would commit to the food so that we would afford to plant the plants. That capacity is there. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe if you'd like to help support the channel. Put the link above. It's buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. Help us spend more time getting the information out about what life is really like here and show you more of the country. Spend more time going around. Get to more of these awesome events we have coming up. If you're interested in coming to Nicaragua and want to just spend some time on the phone and talk about it, shoot me an email, info@relocatenicaragua.com. Be patient. Give me plenty of time on there. It takes me sometimes a week before I'm able to get to the emails, and then we got to make time. Please be super patient. Give me all the lead time that you can. I am super busy, but I really do want to talk to everyone. I love getting the one-on-one time with you guys. It is a source of income to help pay for this channel, so I love that as well, obviously. But it's I think it's an important service, but we're still small. It's just me doing these calls and organizing everything with the email, knowing my schedule. It's very hard, it takes a lot of time. For anyone who's looking for private tours, and a lot of people have reached out about this, my current plan is that I am going to be out of the country for all of October and essentially all of November. So that's a 2-month period. If you're looking for a private tour, book now. For September, should be okay, but there's not too many time slots available. And then we can book for December. Also a little bit tough because coming up on Christmas, I will be heading to the United States as best as I know. Not for very long, but who wants a tour during Christmas anyway, so probably okay. But early December is going to be a good time to get on my schedule. So get on it now for those who are interested. And it sounds like, you know, like, oh, we're this huge tour company with all this going on. Look, I'm one person. It only takes 3 people booking tours and all of my schedule's gone, right? So it's not like that. It's just, I want to make sure that people who need the assistance are able to get it. And otherwise, let's get ready for January. We have talked about doing a group tour February or March. Everyone that I've spoken to, both here and the people online, think that's a great idea. So we're looking at very potentially doing that and putting something together. We need to get some ideas. Get down in those comments. Let me know what you're thinking, what you'd be interested in. But somewhere probably in the early March timeframe is what we'd be looking at. And remember to like and subscribe, post on social media, tell your friends about the show, visit Nicaragua if you're here in country, make an account on Nicagram.com, and I will see all of you tomorrow.